What was I saying? I forgot what I was saying now.
Hello everyone and welcome to BearTalks. Today we are joined by Keep It Frosty.
Hey guys, how you all doing? Hope you're all well.
And today we are going to be talking about DLC in the gaming industry. And we're going to start off with a two-part question rather than normal. What was the first expansion that you ever played?
That's asking, that is. I've always been quite tight when it comes to DLC and expansions, especially on certain games. But I would say I got to find a game worth it to spend the money. So I would have thought, if I could think back correctly, my first proper expansion, what I spent a decent money on, was Witcher 3
Okay.
on PS4. You know, the Blood and the Stone, and I can't remember the other one.
So it's actually pretty recent then.
Yeah, I've never been. The thing is, see, right, is like until well, that's like a proper expansion, isn't it? You know, when it comes to DLC, it would most probably be Rome 2, my first proper DLC. You get what I mean? You know, because it was nothing really before that, was it? Was there any DLC before that?
As in terms of Total War, yeah, there was Shogun 2. A lot of different clans you could add, as well as the infamous or famous Blood Pack.
I bought Shogun 2. Didn't buy another DLC for it. Bought it. I've got it. I didn't buy another DLC. But I used to play a lot of. Obviously, Witcher's been out for a few years now, hasn't it? A nice while now. So I think Witcher's been out now, blimmin' it. I'd say coming on, say 8 years, something like that.
As in the original Witcher or Witcher 3?
Witcher 3. Been out a while.
Yeah, it was out when I was in England, I think. Yeah,
it was out a while. So that's the first proper, I think. That's just off the top of my head, man. I might be wrong. My memory's terrible. Like I can remember buying that, and when it comes to DLC, I'm pretty sure it was Rome 2.
Go on, so I'm intrigued on this. So we have the expansion. Now, expansions for Witcher 3, pretty darn large. Usually a full map extension, plus enemies, plus quests. Yeah,
worth the money.
What was the DLC you got?
I think it was Caesar and Gaul.
Caesar and Gaul. So that is a new map, technically. Why do you
crack on?
Why do you draw that distinction then between the expansion of Witcher 3 and a DLC of Rome 2?
Well, expansion is an expansion on an already game, isn't it? So, like with an expansion, I clear that as kind of a new part to the original game. With a DLC, I kind of categorize a DLC as more of a just new items, really. The game itself hasn't changed. Yeah, all right. And in retrospect, the map has changed, but if you get what I mean, it hasn't, because it's still Europe, innit? Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, it's essentially a blown-up sort of northern Italy, Europe.
So it's just, if anything, just gives you specific goals, doesn't it? You know what I mean? It's just like, right, this is Europe, this is the goal of this DLC, but with an expansion is an actual expansion on the game itself. So when it comes to Witcher, like you say, is a new map, completely new surroundings, completely new environment, completely new armor, completely new stuff, like even down to the game of Gwent on cards, you know what I mean? It was like a new game. So I think that is more of an expansion than DLC, because it's expanding on what was originally there. So with the DLC, it's just kind of adding to what's already there. Does that make sense?
Yes, because there's also add-ons, although I think that has fallen out of favor. They do tend to just be called DLC now, to the best of my knowledge. What do you feel DLC has brought to the gaming community?
I don't know. I suppose you could look at it two different ways, really, can't you? In some
Mhm.
ways, I think that it does bring good aspects, but it also brings bad aspects. You know what I mean? Because
Mhm.
in my personal opinion, if a game is going to be having DLC, technically the game isn't finished. If you think
Mhm.
about it in a logical term, because if they're going to keep adding stuff to it, then it ain't actually a finished product, is it?
Mhm.
If you get a piece of paper and start writing numbers on a piece of paper, say 1 to 10, and you put 1, 2, 3, miss 4, 5, and put 6 in, and then you add 4, 5 in, there's still not a
Yeah.
complete number to 1 to 10. So I think that if say for instance like Warhammer 2 now got £80 worth of DLC, something on around that, right? Don't start sell the game for 50
Mhm.
pounds.
It's
So
10,532 yen to buy every DLC for Warhammer 2.
I don't know what that is in pounds, bro. I haven't got a clue. But I look at I think it's about £80, isn't it?
That would be,
Or
yes, about £80 sterling.
about £80 sterling. What's that? About $90? Is there $100? Something like that.
Mhm.
But you get what I mean. So I suppose you could take different aspects out of it. I think I think the consumer as well makes it worse because we just buy it. We want it, we
Mhm.
buy it. It really bugs us. I don't want to buy it. I'm thinking, oh, you scandalous. I want my.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? It should be in the game. You still buy it, though, don't you? So I think it's just kind of like goods and bad. You know, it depends on what DLC it is. It's like, for instance, Witcher 3, worth for money, in my opinion.
Mhm.
Pretty much like a new game, and it was only like 15 pounds, something like that with the both of them. But when you're asking for like £8 for a new character, I think is a bit of a. So I'm a bit on the fence with that one. I think,
Oh, and so it's
you
a
know,
question of price value.
mm,
I can definitely agree that when they first come out, I think they are, if memory serves, yeah, about £9,
yeah,
£8.99, £7.99. Trying to remember, quite a long time
yeah,
away for that. But when you're getting them for that price, it doesn't seem too bad. And then, as you said, you get to the end and you realize, wow, this is
yeah,
actually, 80,
like a
90,
fail.
hundreds, thousands of pounds worth of DLC in some games.
Yeah. Will you have a look at some of the games as we were talking about earlier on? Do you know
Yes,
what I
we
mean?
were just
I
discussing some of the
don't believe it.
largest ones.
It's hard to believe. It's hard to believe it. Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh yeah, it was £8 here, £4.99 there. It comes out
Mhm.
every couple of months. But when you add onto the game end, say the game is £49.99, that's 50. Just say, you know what I mean, $80 then, or £80, you know what I mean? I mean, that's 130 quid for the game.
Mhm.
130 pounds. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And it's not exactly changed a lot, is it? It's because it's spread out. You don't see the impact, do you, financially. So if someone said to you, right then, here's Warhammer 2 Complete Edition for 130 quid, what would you say?
On your bike.
Yeah, on your bike, wouldn't you? But they're not dull, are they? They know they're
Mhm.
not going to sell that, do they? You know what I mean? So, yeah, so it's kind of on the fence with that. You know what I mean? I'm still going to end up buying this stuff if I like it. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Because
Oh
you
no,
know,
definitely. I
being a
I
you,
actually do own every Total Warhammer 2
yeah, me
DLC
too.
pack.
Yeah,
But do you
but
feel, as a great example actually with the Total Warhammer 2, they have brought out a lot of FLC, free loadable content. Do you feel this kind
mm,
of sweetens the deal, or is this trying to give back to the community? I feel there's a reason
well,
that they do this.
yeah, well, it's a good thing, isn't it? It's nice to think right then. Like I just uploaded now more DLC now, which I am because I've played on Warhammer for about a month or two, so I'm
Mhm.
planning to do more of that on my channel. Just kind of in preparation for Warhammer 3. But you know, the ones I just got now, the recent ones now, obviously, is the new Dark Elves Lord. Don't ask me his
Mhm.
name. I can't remember.
This is
I
Rakarth, I think, the Beast Lord, Beastmaster.
yeah, rack up through the snake, you know, all that. And I've only just downloaded Imric.
Mhm.
Do you know what I mean? I just didn't see the point in having him actually in the game because there was no difference in the game because I had no intention of playing with him. So at the time, so there was no point really having him in the game. Is it? He's in the game anyway if you don't play with him or not. So you only need him in the game if you're gonna play with it, like so. And it can take up a lot of blimmin' memory as well on your computer, can't it?
True, definitely. It has taken quite a lot from the community and definitely caused some issues. But what would you say is kind of a shining example then of a DLC done right?
Well, that's hard to say, really, isn't it?
Well, just in your personal opinion, what would you say is something done well?
Opinion is because I haven't really, well, I would say expansion or DLC. I'd just go back to Witcher 3 because when it comes to buying expansions or DLC, the most money I've spent on any kind of games is Total War franchise. I mean, when it comes to like I used to play a lot on the PS4, PS3, PS1. Before, I still had I've had a gaming PC for years. Like I've been into PC gaming for years, but it's kind of like, so it would be, Witcher 3, I would say. That's my opinion. I don't know what else an opinion, but looking at some of these prices, 27,000 for all them DLCs, you just can't believe that, can you? But
yes, for those who are wanting to have a little look themselves, GameRant.com did an excellent expose, really, on all the different DLCs, the top 15, I believe it is. Top 10, sorry. A great example would be number 4, the Train Simulator, notorious on Steam, having $10,373 worth, US dollars, of DLC. It's quite impressive,
not
really.
Worth that much. I mean, it's 5 times more expensive than my car, like, you know what I mean? Come on, like, why would you spend that on a game? You obviously, you know what I mean? It's just, a deposit for a house, but isn't it?
Do you feel, though, that the ability often that's used as a defense to pick and choose which DLC you want? No one's really expecting you to spend 10,000 on it.
So no, the thing is, see, that's it. You know what I mean? They put the option there. If you want to spend your money, you spend your money. So in kind of a situation, like I said before, it's the consumer really that does it. I mean, if they put it out there, they buying it, they're gonna keep putting it out there, innit? So you know what I mean? If people people are gonna stop saying, right, no, we're gonna stop buying DLC, then they're gonna say, well, we're not making no more money out of it. We might as well just put it into the game anyway, But that comes into a lot of, I suppose, a lot of other decisions with DLC as well, because people spend a lot of time developing this stuff. You know what I mean? I got a lot of admiration for people, who develop these games that we spend so many hours enjoying. So they got to be paid. Do you get what I mean? And
definitely. So and to draw upon Creative Assembly, they have a notorious DLC that's been running throughout a lot of their franchise, the Blood Pack. For those who don't know, this literally just adds blood. Later on, it began to add dismemberment as well. It was suggested as a way to get around parental guidance ratings. However, I have completely stopped using this. I, as a consumer, have decided this is something I do not support and have just stopped buying it. Do you feel that this actually makes a difference? One solitary idiot not buying a DLC.
Oh, the blood and pack one, is there?
Yes, it changes in each game. They do change the name.
Why have you why don't you see that? Why don't you like that in the games? Is there any specific reason why? Or
honestly, I actually think it makes the game look worse. But in general, it's also just something I do not enjoy this feature enough to justify. I believe it is $3.99 right now in England.
Just for adding something into the game, which technically should be in a game anyway. You know what I mean? If you think about it logically, because you've got thousands of men on a battlefield fighting, and there's not one drop of blood. You got to buy the blood, like. Do you want that really realistic, battlefield full of blood scenario? Because you're paying for this, kind of experience. You're paying for this experience because you're not going to be able to command armies in real life. So this is why you're playing Total War. You want to command your army. You want to. So you got to pay $3.99. Excuse me, for blood. So it's kind of like,
Well, do you feel this has actually detracted anything from the game? It's taken anything away?
Well, yeah. well, yeah, it's kind of. How can I explain it? Well, yeah, it kind of takes the heart from the game, I suppose, doesn't it? You know, it's kind of like, it's just like it's just like, it's just consumerism, isn't it? It's just a business, isn't it? You know what I mean? And like me, yourself, and a lot of other people actually love these games. You know what I mean? And we spend our, hard-earned money on these games,
Mhm.
and you know what I mean. And it is nothing worse or more disheartening when you see a game and you think, oh, come on, man. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, just sort it out, like, and you're not dull. You think it's just a money grab, you know what I mean? And you just feel kind of
Mhm.
like a bit, I suppose, taken advantage of it then, in some scenarios, especially like you, for your example, but they're paying $3.99 for Blood on a Battlefield when it should be Blood on a Battlefield anyway. You know what I mean? At the end of the
Get
day, I
behind
know
it.
it's yeah, do you get what I mean? So it's kind of in some scenarios, it's left to the player then, like with all the mods and stuff like that. You get what I mean? It's not, they don't really give what the consumer wants. They just give what they feel is necessary just to keep the consumer coming then. You know what I mean?
Well, on that note, talking about how the industry is essentially using DLC to prolong the life of many of its games,
Yeah.
do you feel this is changing the way that the gaming industry is actually developing their games as well as their release plans
Yeah,
for the future?
absolutely. Because I think they'll just, the first bit of the game, they'll just half-ass it. Just give you a
Pretty
basic
accurate. Mhm.
that's all they'll do, is just give you a basic rundown right then. Total War game, this is what people expect from a Total War game. We'll give them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, blah, bang, right? And this is our predictive outcome. Now we'll release this there, this there, this there, this there. Let's sell it to them for $49.99, and by the end of it, they'll end up paying £150 for a game.
Mhm.
Just takes
True,
all the
true.
heart out of it. Do you get what I mean? So they haven't got that need to think right then. Well, we gotta, people are gonna buy it anyway. Let's just chuck it out. People will buy it. You know what I mean?
Literally, yeah. I think
Yeah,
there was a great shout back by the community against this practice. Interestingly, with CD Projekt Red when they brought out the Cyberpunk.
right.
Now,
Yeah,
looking back, if you actually go to the original Witcher, and even then Witcher 2, Witcher 3, there were a lot of stability issues to begin with on their initial release. Yet it's really with Cyberpunk, yeah, if I can speak, with Cyberpunk that has resulted in this backlash from the community. Do you
there's no
think
need for it, is
that,
it?
well, do you think that the way the gaming industry is treating its public is starting to actually have that negative effect? It's reached its
Yeah,
boiling point.
100%. Because people are not dull, are they?
Mm.
Do you get what I mean? People, you know what I mean? People, they know what they want and they know what to expect out of games. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, you go out and spend £700 or $700 on a PS4, for instance, or you go out, like, you know what I mean? Like gaming PCs. I thought buying a PS4 was expensive. Go buy a tiny gaming PC. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
$700 is tipping, isn't it? You know what I mean? But you go out and spend all this money on a gaming PC because you want the best experience, and then you get right then, yeah, I'm looking forward to this game. I want, you're all hyped up about it. You come out and you think, oh well, cheers for that. Spend all this money on a PC, and now you know what I mean, and you're only using like 1% of your, GPU or whatever. You know what I mean? And then you kind of like having to pay for stuff that you should be in the game regardless. Do you
Mhm.
get what I mean? It's kind of, yeah, it is, and I think people are starting to see that. And but like I say, it's kind of like swings and roundabouts, isn't it? Because if people are still gonna keep buying it, they're gonna keep doing it, innit? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Unless something is actually done
Well,
about it. And
using this once more, the Cyberpunk 2077. Do you kind of feel like this message has been made because so many people were refunding it almost instantly, rather than waiting for the promised patches, the promised updates, alongside DLC they were promising for telling for the future?
I don't reckon. No, I reckon personally that um it'd have to be a bit more than that. To
Mhm.
get what I mean, I reckon in a lot of people, creative, the people who create and develop these games really do take it right to the edge. And let's see how far we can push. You get what I
Mhm.
mean? And it's like Creative Assembly done I suppose is a good thing with Troy. You know what I mean? Now it doesn't matter if that was bad or good, regardless. You had it for free. Do you know what I mean? I know it was a specific time frame on it. You know what I mean? So even if I downloaded
Yes, there was
it, I
a
had it for free.
specific window of a 1 year 1 year agreement with Epic Games to have the game on there, and it was a 24-hour window in which you could download it for free, and you could also get the Amazon. I don't know if you can technically call that a pre-release, but you could get the Amazons
kind of
upon
like
release.
An extra thing for I get what you mean.
Well,
but then you get a game free like that when they sell in DLCs, then it's not so bad, is it? Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, well, I didn't pay for the game. Like spending $20 or £20 on DLC just to complete. It's not so much of a sting. So I think it's gonna be. It's not a good thing in my personal opinion. I think it's I think in all aspects of life, soon as people see that they can make money out of something, they're gonna run with it, and they're gonna run with it regardless of what industry you're in. You know what I mean? Until people say no is enough, then they're just gonna keep doing it regardless. So
what do you think would be that tipping point then? What do you think would finally galvanize the gaming community to unite against this?
Well, just a decrease in game. But that's it. It'd have to be something dramatic, like every like just kind of like to stop buying, really. Yeah, it's like if it like for instance now. Let's say if Warhammer now come up with a new DLC and no one bought that DLC, right? What is Creative Assembly going to do then? Are they going to release it for free? Because they've just spent all that. Do you get what I mean? So it's kind of like, well, the only way to get to someone is really to stop buying, isn't it? Really, or just
to get through to a company. Yeah, I mean, companies only deal. Financially, essentially.
Money. Yeah, financially. So you'd have to stop buying, but people are going to stop buying. Like, I am totally against DLCs, don't get me wrong, like, you know what I mean? But I think in some aspects, it's getting a bit too much now, you know what I mean? It's, some games especially, like we were seeing on our list, come on, dude. It's 10 grand.
So if this is happening and there's very little that anyone can do about it, why do you feel it has even started? What was instigating it, but why do you feel this has developed to this point?
Well, I think it's developed to this point because, well, I suppose it comes down to early access. Anyway, the thing that you see a lot on, and I think it's rolled from PC onto console, right? Now, a lot of situations with PC games, there's a lot of early access games out there. So you're always playing you're always playing on games that are not fully complete. Okay, so I think it was someone's bright idea to turn around and say, well, we haven't released a full game. They've bought the game. So let's start charging them for the work we're doing to complete the game. Do you get what I mean? So,
this is very much how I feel about Destiny. I was playing Destiny when it first released and thoroughly enjoyed it, and then was brought the new DLC expecting to enjoy it. I went and got the limited edition, or it came with the expansions, and of course all the good expansions came after that season pass had finished. And when I went back to the game, none of the mechanics were the same. It was essentially a brand new game, not the game I bought.
And you can kind of, well, it's disheartening, really, isn't it? It's kind of like, well, you know what I mean? It's like you do feel taken advantage of, don't you? So I think it was just, I think it rolled from PC then onto consoles. You've never seen DLC on consoles. PS1, PS2, PS3. It was very, very, limited.
You had a lot of DLC, particularly on the PlayStation 3. You look onto the PlayStation Network. I have a PS Vita. I could see DLC add-ons, particularly cosmetics and additional in-game items, were very common in that.
Like costumes and stuff like that. And I get what you mean. Like for certain aspects of certain games, but I think it's just kind of they two for the same one, because most PC games, well, I'm not saying that, mind. A lot of console games are on PC, but there's not a lot of PC games on console, is there? So it's kind of like, so it's kind of there's some good things, there's some bad things, but I don't think there's really anything anyone can do about it. You know, I think if anything's going to be done about it, it's going to be done as a collective. You know what I mean? As a whole. You know what I mean? There's no point in one person because that ain't going to hit anything really, is it? And I think over time, it's just going to get worse. You know, and I think you're just going to start off with a base game. And then after that, then it'll just be you'll be paying then for the DLC. Those DLCs were meant to be implemented into the game anyway, but you'll end up.
You can actually mention there's a very good example of exactly what we're saying. You pay for this sort of base game initial content with story-based game or campaign-based games. If you look at any kind of Telltale, for example, you could actually get the first episode for free. You have to buy each subsequent episode. But this also happened with Resident Evil Revelations 2. You now, I believe, can get the first episode for free on Steam, whereas later episodes you do have to pay for. This cutting up and butchering of a game, potentially good, allows you to buy parts you want, but also destroys the narrative as you're now making it so you can basically jump in and out of Mission 4 and then pull back and play Mission 1 eventually if you decide to buy it. Do you think this has kind of led to almost a change in the way games are being developed and narratives are being created?
Well, if you think back to the PlayStation 1, remember buying the PlayStation mags?
Oh, yes.
And you got a demo in there?
I still have my original discs.
Like yeah. You know what I mean? You'd have a demo in there and stuff like that. I think it's always been there. But you'd have that demo for free, and it's kind of the same with Steam, isn't it? But
well, a demo level and the ability to purchase separate parts of the mission. I appreciate what you're saying, though. The first level being for free is a nice addition. It's a nice demo into the story.
Yeah.
But shouldn't you then be able to buy the full game afterwards?
Yeah, but that'd make more sense, wouldn't it? You know what I mean? I think that should be. I think they should tailor that to the gaming situation anyway. Let people have a gander. Like before I even buy a game, I'm on YouTube. You know what I mean? But then how much is the episodes? Like, say if you average out a game for like say £50, right? How much is each episode? Do you get what I mean?
Let's have
you might get up to.
I'm just saying, let's have a quick look.
In some aspects, it could be good, but in some aspects, it could be bad. So, say for instance, now each episode is say £5, and there's so many episodes. You might get up to episode 4, and think, no, this game ain't for me. So, in retrospect, and you've only spent $20 on it, or £20 on it. As well, if they just give you the free one, then you spend £50 on it. And then you get up halfway through the game and think, I don't like it. At least you haven't spent the full amount on the game. You get what I mean?
True. Go on, just to give some figures to this, I was wrong actually. The Resident Evil 2 must have been a short time free demo window. But it was 815 yen per episode, with additional episodes then coming in, as in the extra, the bonus levels, at 509 yen, which... if we do our little conversion to Great British pounds, so Frosty knows what I'm on about. So it'll be about £3.50, give or take, for the added parts, and then about, let's just say, round it up to around £7 for each episode, each mission within it.
Right. So how many? That's what I mean. You got to kind of weigh up the good end, right? So £3.50 or £7. So just call it a tenner, yeah, for rough around. How many missions is it?
Well, of those 350 ones, you're looking at 2 episodes you can add in, plus map packs if you're interested in them. Whereas the episodes, the main part of the story, which is around £7, you need 4 to complete the game.
So how much does that work out to? So they kind of then got to do the maths then, really, haven't they? It's kind of like, well, is it worth buying the full game? Or are they actually giving you an opportunity to see how you progress through the game?
But isn't that more of setting up to lose? That's the company saying, well, they're not really going to like the rest of this. Let's let them buy it in cheap so they can pop off before the end.
I don't know.
It could also be saving them from reviews. If reviews for the later parts, later missions, are worse than those before. Which, thankfully, in the case of Resident Evil, they are all very positive the whole way through. But you could well have a situation where your first mission reviews extremely well, everyone loved it, and then there's a gradual decline in the quality as people buy into this narrative and simply want to see it through to the end.
Well, that's it. I suppose it's kind of what kind of game it is as well, isn't it, at the end of the day? Now, like with a, say a Total War game, for instance, you know what you're going to get with a Total War game, you know what I mean? Some other people like think, but with a mission-based computer game, you kind of, that story-based, you don't know which way it's going to turn, do you? You enjoy the demo, say you spend 10 of them for the first bit and the first level, start playing on that and think, no, don't like that. You know what I mean? Maybe it end for me. Then you. But do you feel
this is just playing into the modern consumer? In that, as we can see with things like Netflix, people like to binge. Are we now seeing the introduction of binge gaming, where people want bite-sized chunks of story that they can feast upon in an evening, and then never touch again?
I won't have the money to do that. You know what I mean? No, well, I hope not. I get where you're coming from. I get exactly where you're coming from. It's just like, instead of releasing a full game, they're going to release part of a game, and then they're going to be like, well, if you want to see what happens, you're going to have to wait and pay. You know what I mean? Just kind of like an episode.
It's not just that. It's also with the way that, particularly with old TV series, old cartoons, there was a lot of filler episodes, a lot of mini things that would happen, like tiny story arcs throughout, say, 10 episodes, that are completely omitted from a lot of modern day things because they want to be short, snappy, they want to be sound bites. Do you think we'll end up with gaming that is really based around, for example, if we were to use a strategy game, maybe just the battles, no empire building, or only looking at key points within your expansion?
Well, I hope not, because I wouldn't like that. Personally, like, you know what I mean? I like Total War for what it is, you know what I mean? If they start doing stuff like that, then, you know what I mean, I'm out of there. I won't be spending my money on stuff like that, you know what I mean? At the end of the day, you've got Total War is built this, he's got his foundations now, haven't it? It can't change. The only thing it can do now is build his foundation stronger, you know what I mean? By, you know, maybe pushing the boat out a little bit more, you know what I mean? And giving the fans what they want. I mean, they can't go back on what they've already done, because the majority of Total War fans play on the Total War franchise for one specific reason, because of the empire building, because even though how much want to do, it does your edit on the game.
Yeah, it's bringing in the mixture. That's really what brings Total War together. But do you feel this is essentially hitting this point of a changing of the old guard? Gamers like me and you who were brought up, so your introduction to expansions was with Witcher 3. My introduction to expansions, I think, was back with Crush, Kill and Destroy. I believe that had an expansion on it. I'm a bit 50-50 on that. But I certainly remember buying discs and actually having to install them. Great example, Warcraft 3 having the Frozen Thrones. That's the most recent expansion I can actually think of having been bought. I hope someone remembers that. I'm sure others did. But do you think that's basically us refusing to give up that older way of playing and buying complete games in a disc to the modern day download little sections?
No, I'm biased. I think our way is the best way.
No argument here.
no bias. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, keep it simple. Don't keep it stupid simple. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, you know what I mean? You start messing around with stuff like that, and you know what I mean? It's going to confuse a lot of people. You know what I mean? It's going to be like, well, what am I buying? Am I buying this? Am I buying that? You know what I mean? At the end of the day, you got to have a foundation with every product, haven't you? At the end of the day, you got to know initially what you're getting and what you're getting for your money. As soon as they start splitting stuff up, doing this, doing that, here and there, I think that's just asking for failure.
I mean, I will say this does come down to a question of what sort of game it is. As you said, there are certain ones this kind of tailors to, particularly with any kind of mission-based game, you can actually add in DLC at the end as an expansion, expanding upon the story, what happened after. But when you're looking at more of a sandbox title, something, for example, if we were to use Mountain Blade, a game you love, or Mountain Blade 2, how would DLC fit into that? Having to relearn those mechanics, relearn the balance of the world, relearn the map every time you return to it.
Well, with Mountain Blade, we've had a few conversations like this on my stream and everything like that. That game has got so much potential. Okay, so much potential. That could really, that could be the pinnacle point where all games will be based off. It's like the same as when Witcher 3 came out, right? Now, when Witcher 3 came out, it was years ago. A lot of people went off that game engine, didn't they? Witcher 3 was way to go.
So yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Everyone was looking at Witcher 3 at that. Oh, you know, I mean, if we're gonna build a game, we gotta kind of implement this because it was such a kind of like Red Dead Redemption. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? It's the
Never
little
completed
things,
that.
Not me, never completed it either. But
My save file glitched about 3/4 of the way through. Never came back.
no.
CD
Well, that's
Projekt
it,
Red
but
and me don't get along.
Yeah, so I think like that game got so much potential, Bannerlord. And like we've talked about it in my streams, I've talked about it like with Flesh and all that, and a few of the boys in my stream like Tony are on the regular times. That they're always on the forums. That game got so much potential. You can see the anger and the frustration in the consumer's voice. Like, you know what I mean? It's like they're peed off about it. Like, you know what I mean? They ain't happy. Like, you know what I mean? Because they can see.
Well, why do you feel that? For our viewers and for myself, why is the community outraged for it?
Because like it's like I've never played on Warband then, right? And then so when we were chatting, for instance, so like say for instance with Bannerlord, let's put this down for an example. When you make an army, right, you spend a lot of time making an army, right? It's not one of those things where you just recruit troops. You recruit in singular troops. And then, right, and then if you've got 2,000 men or whatever in your army, 500 or whatever, each one of them is singular troops that you've recruited yourself. It's not a unit of 100, it's not a unit of 200 like in Warhammer. Okay? So when it comes to picking a fight, you got to be very blimmin' careful because you lose that fight. Do you know what I mean? It's easier to go back to a load save game than it is to run around again.
Yeah, trying to re-recruit them.
Yeah, what I mean. But then that kind of takes the fun out of the game. So why don't they put forts in the game? Like, and you know what I mean? Like the ability to, like when in Medieval 2, for instance, you could build watchtowers. Little things like that I like.
But do you not feel that this should have been in the base game rather than introduced later on as a DLC?
Yeah, this is why we all think like, because that was introduced in Warband. Why a fort building then is in Warband? Why ain't it been Mountain Blade? Do you get what I mean?
Oh,
little
definitely.
other things, but then it's the modders. Then if you go onto my channel and you look at the episode I'm doing now, which is the Calradian Expanded Kingdoms mod, right? Now some genius has made a mod. I don't get me started on mod, and I wouldn't have a clue where to start. Okay, and they have expanded on the map. Now the map is a big map, and there's a lot of map being left out. And there's loads of other things like little islands and now, which they've put like neutral kingdoms. You know what I mean? They've introduced shipping lanes for trading into the mod, which wasn't in the base game. Now, little things like this, I don't understand. After all, how gaming has developed, how people don't put that in the base game as it is. And I think that's what people are frustrated about, is why am I getting... I know the thing is, Bannerlord is still in early access. So it's difficult to turn around and say what the finished game is going to be like. But, you know, there's... You know, I mean, you get a lot of information as well. How can I say it? It's just kind of being lazy with it, you know? You know, they're not putting their heart and soul into it because it could be that pinnacle... Like, Bannerlord could be that pinnacle game where...
Granted, but I do think going from an early access game, which I didn't realize it was still in early access. I thought it finally finished.
Access, yeah.
No, I think that's definitely a separate issue because that's looking at basically should early access exist, which I'm very much against, for the record.
Yeah,
but,
complete game would be better, wouldn't it?
So recently you've been playing Strongholds and using that as your basis. How would you see DLC being added on to actually what is a bit of a retro game to begin with? Do you think it would fit nicely or kind of go counter to its ideals?
Well, Stronghold is because one of those games you know what you're getting, don't you? It's like Stronghold haven't been released now for a long, long time, and it's pretty much the same game with different makeup on. It's still a fun game. I'm not dissing a game at all. You know what I mean? I can sit there for hours just building a castle, building my farms, relaxing. You know what I mean? It's one of those games I enjoy. And DLC, I think they'd ruin it, man. It's because I enjoy it how it is. You know what I mean? Now, what are they going to add to that game which is going to make me part my money? There's not really much else, is there?
Well, to draw upon a classic of the DLC story, they could always do what Oblivion did and introduce some lovely horse armor.
But the thing is, see, to introduce something like that into a game like that, it's kind of like, in Oblivion, you can see what you're getting, can't you?
Mm-hmm.
To a degree. It's like, for instance, put it into my younger nephews, my younger brother, mad for, what's that online shooter game that everyone's buzzing about? See, my memory's terrible.
Which one? Apex Legends? Fortnite?
No, Fortnite,
Rainbow
that's
Six Siege? Ah, Fortnite.
Fortnite, and they spend a lot of money on skins, right? You know, and you know, they'll just spend like $9.99 on a pink bear suit, and I'm thinking, what the?
Wait. $9.99?
Sometimes $9.99 on a pink bear suit.
That's become the... Is that like premium, or has this become the going price? Because I'm sorry, when I was looking at games that had cosmetics, most of them were under £1. Well, actually, using Fortnite as an excellent example of DLC and kind of the company's, the business perspective around it, are you aware of the lawsuit that was going through between Apple and Epic surrounding Fortnite?
No.
So to put it simple, because there is a lot on this, there were sues and countersues, basically Epic was attempting to circumvent Apple's DLC policy of earning money from DLCs purchased within their applications, and as such, Apple pulled it from their store, which has resulted in lots and lots of lawsuits. But do you feel this is a clear sign that perhaps people are really just in this for the money by trying to circumvent each other's businesses to ensure they get the full profit?
Yeah, that's always been my issue with it. Like I say, it's kind of a money grab, isn't it? It's like, we've had this conversation before on streams, and we've turned around and said, and I've always been straight down to the point. Half the time, it's just a money grab. You haven't got to be a genius to see that, have you? At the end of the day, you know what I mean? Especially if you've been an avid gamer all your life and you see how things have developed. You know what I mean? It's gone from buying a computer game from 1999 in Tesco's to,
Classic.
you know what I mean? Yeah, you know what I mean?
I still go down CEX and picking up the old PC cases.
Yeah. Love it, man. I still got in my, where's it to? Over there, there's still the stainless steel Warhammer 1 box. I didn't want to download it off Steam.
I didn't know Steam. I didn't know CA did that. I knew that CA made an agreement with them back in Napoleon, I believe it was, to be purely downloadable, unless it's.
Yeah, and I don't like it. I like a collection. I think it's in the box over there. 2 secs.
Yeah, go and grab it. Classic.
My state, you know what I mean? I got the free games here.
Here's a big question: game manual.
I like it.
The only reason I enjoyed them was just having that game manual. I mean, this is talking back in the days when I was a little kid. Your parents bought you a game, you open up the manual in the car, and you sat reading it all the way home.
It's like you look at that, look how epic that looks on the back. Like, you know, you look at that, all right, I cannot wait to get on now when I get home. Now, you mean you unwrap it, it's students in the house, folks, you bang it on, download the news, like, right, let's get into it. And that first scene of, like, when it starts loading up and you start watching the first introduction of it and you're thinking, oh, here we go, this is going to be epic. You know? I kind of feel like they take me.
Yeah, I mean, do you feel this is essentially just showing how gaming has changed for the years then?
Yeah, it's just showing it. It's basically, like, don't get me wrong, I got, you know, as long as I get to play on the game, this and that, so to speak. But, you know, it's gonna change. It's inevitable, isn't it? You know what I mean? It's inevitable. It's gonna change. But
so
at the end.
So I was just gonna say, I'm gonna bring this in, this idea of like changes in gaming culture, and particularly around DLC. I can still remember back in the day, maybe a few of my friends would pick up the odd cosmetic item. You'd use it for a bit and then you just never use it again. That wasn't too bad. You're only buying maybe one in a year and you're spending pence upon it. Whereas nowadays, there is actually this idea that if you don't have the latest skins, if you don't have the most fashionable of cosmetics, you're actually getting essentially bullied for not using it.
It's wrong. It's kind of like that's the thing. See, is where you gotta have like doing what we do. You gotta have that thick skin every now. You know what I mean? You gotta just kind of let things brush off you. You know what I mean? Blah this blah blah. Because if someone don't like the contact, they tend to let you know, don't they? You know what I mean? But
usually it's more how tired I look. That's all I ever hear on stream.
You know what I mean? But I love what I do because you get to meet people. Like we've met each other through it. Like you're all the way in Japan, I'm all the way in Wales. You know what I mean? And we just enjoy each other's content, and we get up and we got some projects ahead that we're thinking of doing. You know what I mean? So keep an eye out; it'll all be good. So, but yeah, it is that. You know, it's like it might, like for example, yeah, it is because you don't see kids out playing no more, do you? You know what I mean? And it's such a high demand.
I should say, bear in mind, for those who don't know, haven't watched me for a while, I am living in Japan. I've actually lived in Asia for quite a few years now. And yes, Thailand, South Korea, into Japan. The majority of students I know, they weren't really into gaming, they would tell me, because they all played on their mobile phone. Gaming being console or PC in their eyes, and really playing games on the mobile seemed to be essentially how most of them spend their entire day.
Yeah, well, then that's it, see, and then you got that, how can I say it, you got, the dangerous thing about gaming is you can lose yourself in it, can't you? How many times you played in a game, you got completely pissing addicted to it, and you're thinking, oh my giddy aunt, you know what I mean? All your time and effort's going into it, and you kind of lose yourself in it, don't you? And you know what I mean? It kind of becomes that.
I would honestly say I haven't actually had that since I was a kid. I find most modern games seem to be almost based more around a casual interaction system. You can jump in, you can jump out. Particularly most FPSs I've been playing lately are a lot of online games such as Fortnite. Whereas the games I enjoy, the games I love, are usually grand strategy. So once more, you play a turn, you play for so many hours, minutes, whatever you want, really, and then you just hop off. But do you feel that despite, once more, the old guard saying that you can jump in, jump out from games such as Fortnite, such as Apex Legends, that this isn't the way that the modern generation's seeing it?
I think, it's cliche, really, isn't it? It's like they'll just drum it into the younger ones, and then as they become older, it'll just become the normal, won't it? They won't see no different. It's just, you know what I mean? Well, we'll drum it into them now when they're young, like Fortnite and that stuff. Like, you got to buy if you want stuff. You can't just have the finished game. You've got to buy this. So when they buy another epic game comes out like that, because I'm not into Fortnite or anything, but when another game like that comes out, then if they've got to buy stuff, they're not going to fight against it, are they? Because they've done it before and they think that's normal now. And I think that's taking advantage. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's quite an interesting take then. So you're suggesting this is almost it's like an insipid nature that's been sort of drilled in and really nurtured from a young age.
Yeah, they've got to nurture them, you know what I mean? And say, right, then we'll implement that in now. And like you say, people got to have the most rad stuff. And it's the same as Warhammer, for instance, okay? Right now, like in certain aspects, it changes the thing of the game, right? Now,
is this Total War Warhammer or Warhammer itself? Because Warhammer has recently had a new release for the Age of Sigmar, and I am sat there thinking, wow, I want those models.
Yeah, and it's you know what I mean. But
sorry, to go completely old school, I play miniatures. Yeah,
well, there's nothing wrong with that, innit? You do what you do, don't you?
There is when you live in Japan and can't fly them back home.
But yeah, I think they just drum it into the young generation now and thinking like this is a normal. So when they get to mine and your age, they won't be paying for the full game. They'll be paying like
for the
you
first
said,
level.
Like, for the first level. You do
for your character packs, you can have the NPCs with this pack. You can have the main character. You may have the antagonist for this much.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? It's just.
I would love to play a game where the antagonist is optional. I think that could actually be quite funny.
Well, yeah, you know what I mean? It's cliche, innit? If you take the world into perspective, right, and the way things are going with everything, you know what I mean? Everything is not, you know what I mean? It's about money now, innit? You take it like,
But hasn't it always been about money? This is a gaming industry. It is based around
Well,
earning a revenue from gaming.
I understand that, but what the difference is you can put different aspects of life into every other aspect of life. If, right, for example, like my country, Wales, right? We love rugby, right? Now, in the olden days, now, right, you used to have people from the mines playing rugby. They used to smoke. They used to drink. They used to. And
They were
used
very
to
naughty children. Remember this? Teacher
Yeah.
has told you.
Yeah. Yes. But they played rugby because they were passionate. They were passionate about it. Do you get what I mean? Right?
Oh,
That's
definitely.
lost its touch. Now they go to where the money is. Now that's exactly the same in other aspects of life, like development. Now it's where people would go into development, say, of a game or an object or something like that. Think, right? And I think that this will do someone good. I think people will get enjoyment out of this, or I think this will help someone. Instead of putting a passion into that, they don't look for that no more. They think, right then, well, how can we manipulate this to make money? Do you get what I mean? And I think that's just, I don't think it's just a gaming industry in general. I just think it's just life in general. It's just, you get what I mean?
It's doom and gloom from here on out.
Yeah. It's not like
Next
doom and gloom.
generation be warned. No, I can understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, it's like common sense prevail. You know what I mean? It's like,
I do actually have one question for something you brought up. Sorry, you were saying about the businesses they're putting in this effort to consider how they're going to make money. How do you feel that comes into play when we also hear about the crunch? We had to bring back Cyberpunk 2077. CD Projekt Red was notorious for engaging in the crunch, which was people working over 40 hours within a week to try and complete a game to reach a deadline, to then have the game not work, and then have the game expanded with DLC later on the track. Do you feel that this
you know
is...
what I mean? It's kind of that's just kind of a job, really, isn't it?
But is it a job when you're expected to work overtime long into the night?
That's where the passion's going, isn't it? Because people, I suppose maybe that's the reason. Maybe, I don't know, you know, people, you work so much overwork, they just can't be bothered anymore. They're just working to a deadline. They're not working to an actual, a finished product. They just think, right, we just got to do what we can do in this deadline. They're saying, right, this game has got to be done by this time. Just do what you bloody can do in this deadline, and that's it. Don't worry about this. Don't worry about that. And it's taken the imagination out of development. It's taken the creativity out of development then. So it's kind of, is it the development's fault? Is it the creative's fault? Or is it the people above them which are pushing them to the point where they got no other choice but to do their blooming job, or they're out of a job? You can't do it, I'll find someone else to do it.
I actually think this brings in a really interesting idea and potentially a solution to the problem, or we hope. By increasing the amount of time game have in development. Quite a ridiculous one when CD Projekt Red was doing it allegedly for, I believe, 5+ years when it came to that, and still it wasn't so great. But moving on. Sorry, I'm just laughing at myself now.
Oh, it's all right.
But no, if they are kind of losing this passion, losing this drive, this creativity to create something amazing, to create their dream, and instead just saying, well, we'll get what we can done, tack it on later. That thing you really wanted to do, just stop for now. Do it 2 months down the line. We'll put it as DLC. Yeah. You feel this has really become like the solution for how they're doing it?
Well, yeah, because like you say, it's a lot of early access coming up. Now, I can't say, that is for definite, because it's just my opinion, isn't it? But you know what I mean. You know, a lot of people go into development and stuff like that, and you know what I mean. You got to be a creative person, haven't you? You got to be able to think outside the box. You got to be able to put your imagination to paper, or in other words, a PC screen. But you get my point. You got to be able to do that now. Now, when something that you enjoy doing becomes a bore, so to speak. It kind of takes the enjoyment out of it. It takes the passion out of it. And yeah, in my opinion, maybe that is why the DLC just get, like I said, just get the base game out there. People will buy it. People will buy it. And we'll add all the other bits and bobs on later. Simple as that. You know what I mean? And kind of win-win for them because one, maybe the end game works so hard, and two, they're going to make more blooming money out of the game, aren't they? But then it's a kind of a lose-lose situation, but yeah, because we get an half-ass game, and then we've got to spend more money then again to get a completely finished game. So I think, like I say, but I don't think people help either, Steve, because people always want the next best thing, don't they? They can't just sit back, be patient, and wait. You know what I mean? They're like, do this, do that, do this, do that, and then these companies then are getting. I know I would say panicked, but they get it thinking, well, oh come on, we got to do something. We got to do something. We're gonna end up losing our. We're gonna end up losing our audience. We got to bring something out. We gotta feed that.
But isn't that an issue then? As if almost this has been created by the hype train idea that when they come to say E3, for example, they're showing off, they're making promises for these games that in reality they just can't keep.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think a lot of them promises and stuff like that are kept just to keep the hype up. Do you get what I mean?
Well, how do you feel about hype being used as a marketing tool?
Well, it's wrong, isn't it? You know, tell people as it is. You know what I mean? Simple as that. You know what I mean? I'd be like, if I was a game development, right then, you want Medieval free? Be patient for Medieval free. You don't want us to disappoint? Then you be patient with Medieval free. If you want the game that you want, give me your ideas and we'll put it, but you've got to be patient, because if you're expecting a game on this grand scale, it's not going to be done overnight. Do you know what I mean? Instead of just... As
depressing as this question is, do you honestly think that's possible with the current age?
What do you mean by that? Like
as in, if a developer actually said, sorry guys, be patient, do you think that they would be able to do that without any major backlash?
Well, I suppose...
Like, I have to say, I certainly hope that they could do that with zero backlash, as it should be, but...
Yeah, it should be. You know what I mean? People, you know what I mean? If you want quality, you got to be paid to wait. You know what I mean? If you want quantity, expect crap. Like, as simple as that, really. You want games coming out every 6 months, don't expect them to be amazing games, and don't mourn about them when they come out, because they're not, you know what I mean? You rush these games through the production line. It's the same as any other product. You get rushed through the production line. It's not going to be work as good as something that's been taken its time on. Make sure it works correctly. Make sure everything's pucker. You know what I mean? Blah this, blah that. So I think it's kind of not just the development's fault. I think is, in retrospect, our fault too, by pushing a lot of pressure onto the developers, saying, "Well, come on, we want the next best thing," and they're thinking, "Well, okay then, when's the next best thing coming out?" And then they're thinking, "Right then, we got to come on, get something out there." And then that's where your point then is, well, oh, don't worry about that. We'll add that on later as DLC. You know what I mean? And it becomes this kind of big gaming rat race where, you know, all other competitors then are, you know, are fighting each other for, you know, the best next.
It's not really a release date. It is a release race at this point. Who can have the best showing, to use E3 again, who can have the best showing at E3, who can show off the best games. And actually, interestingly, a lot of the journalists were reporting saying Sony had won E3.
Yeah.
Fair enough. They showed off a lot of games, but can you really win I don't even know what to call that. Just an attempt to show off and demo your new stuff. Is it possible?
Yeah, you only win when the people who buy your content enjoy your content in reality, don't you? Do you get what I mean? Now you can... I suppose that I think that's the issue. It's all one big race, isn't it? You know what I mean? And gaming developers are not going to change the way games are made unless they have some healthy competition out there. So Total War will never change unless something comes out that threatens Total War. Then they're going to have to, right then, now maybe...
To bring this back to DLC, though, do you feel that DLC is essentially fueling this fire, or is it acting as a potential solution? Is it a help or a hindrance?
In some cases, it could be a help. It all depends how you look at DLC. Is it worth the money, for instance? Now, if you want a game earlier, expect a base game, but you got the developer say, right, you can have the game earlier, and it's that's if you want. But we'll add things over time. You know what I mean? You can have I don't know, maybe a choice to buy like pre-order. I don't know, and then.
Well, then, do you feel this is not so much an issue as whether DLC exists or not? That's perfectly fine. It's a question of transparency. Should they be communicating this with their audience, essentially all the way through 100%. The process?
Yeah, they should be. Yeah, 100%. You know what I mean? I think transparency is the key. Because if both sides are clear with what they want, then there's not going to be no issue, is there?
Well, I'd like to just quickly grab something. A great example of this is indie titles, indie devlogs specifically. To grab Manor Lords, a game that a lot of people in the strategy community are looking upon with some pretty hopeful eyes. They've been very transparent the whole way through, whereas your AAA titles, pretty hush-hush until the last few minutes.
Yeah, you know what I mean? But I think that's... The thing is here, right? It's like Warhammer 3M, for instance, right? There's nothing out about Warhammer 3. Now, the game has got to be released this year now, so surely they've got some news about it. Like, Manor Lord is not be able to be released, is it, till next year? Is it? I think it's next year.
I honestly haven't seen an official release date yet.
I think, well, just say it's... I'm pretty sure it's 2022.
Let's have a little look. Manor Lords. It is on Steam now. You can wishlist it.
Yeah.
It just says planned release date TBA.
Oh, well, there we are then. But just, do you get what I mean? But with them being that transparent with the game, then that shows them that...
What did you say? Sorry, we just lost the audio.
With them being transparent, it's a really good thing, isn't it? Because it means then that they're not hiding nothing, I suppose, from the people who want to buy the game. You know what I mean? They're being transparent and basically saying, right, this is what we're offering. If you want to buy it, it's up to you. Do you get what I mean? As where, like, maybe Warhammer 3 will be the case of, well, we're not giving you nothing. It's Warhammer 3, you're going to buy it regardless. You know what I mean? Which we all going to buy it regardless.
True.
You know what I mean?
I cannot deny I have already pre-ordered. Total War is definitely a series that even games that would rate low in the Total War franchise, I've still managed to play 100+ hours on each title. Looking over at Empire. Welcome back, everyone, to part 2. And we'd like to thank you for purchasing part 2 DLC. We're gonna have a gotta do it.
Yeah, good revenue. How much is that? £10,000 worth, yeah?
Ooh. Maybe 50p. But yeah. On the note of DLC price and worth, quite well brought in there, I actually wanted to bring up a strategy game, Crusaders Kings 2. Crusader Kings 2 is now free to play, so you can actually get the base game. Originally it was paid, but Crusader King 3 came out, they then made it free to play. But if we scroll down and we have a little look at our DLC, there's 30,868 yen's worth, which is just over £200 sterling, I believe. Yes, quite big. But one of the paid for DLC is what I really wanted to bring up.
I can't get on my...
We have Ruler Designer. So all this DLC does is allow you to design your king. That is it.
How much is that?
This is 498 yen, which is a little bit less than £3, I would imagine. Go on, do you feel that this is a worthwhile DLC?
Pay for DLC if it would allow me to make my own lord, say on Warhammer or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? The abilities and stuff like that, so I could create my own Carl Franz. It'd be Carl Frosty. Carl Frosty.
Well, I'm just going to bring up, so this is some of the comments. For the record, this is mostly negatively reviewed over on Steam. We range from some naughty words that have been hearted out, costs €5 just to use console commands. That is actually all it does. It allows you to use console commands in order to change the way a character looks. We have other people mentioning how this is DLC that should already have been in the base game. There are some positive ones saying how nice it is to customize their character. As I said, this is mostly a negative review. Do you...
Always look at the reviews, guys.
Mm.
Always look at the reviews. But in that case, no. I suppose it's got. Well, I don't know. It depends on the person, really, doesn't it? Some people might like it. Some people might not. It'll have to be pretty epic for me to buy something like that. No, the chance I buy everything on Warhammer and that anyway. You know what I mean? Just because one, I'm a YouTuber, and I kind of need to keep up with the trend of Warhammer.
True.
So that's one kind of I would say disadvantage really, because I need to have the next best thing. You know what I mean? Because that's what people want to watch, and that's what I gotta provide the best I can. You know. And at the moment, with me not being monetized and stuff like that, I'm only putting the money that I earn personally out of it. I'm not having no revenue in to add. Do you get what I mean? So
yeah, definitely. I'm gonna grab one thing you were mentioning though about the worth of this and how that can change person to person. Do you feel in a similar manner to the tremendous issues there were with loot boxes, that this is essentially picking on those people that are most likely, but perhaps shouldn't even be buying these DLC because they're cheap, affordable, and they're pretty cool until you add it up?
Yeah, well, that's it, isn't it? Well, I think it's kind of at a target audience, because I know people who won't bother with DLC. You know what I mean? Unless it's worth it. They say, well, there's no point in worth it. It's in the game anyway. If I want to play it in the future, if I got the money, I'll buy it. But until I want to bother with it, there's no point. Do you know what I mean? Now, obviously, in some cases, some DLC is kind of like, maybe some is like a no-brainer, but then some can change the aspects of a game. So they put you in a position where you feel that, like, say for instance, you ever like started a Let's Play on your channel, right?
Yeah.
New DLC comes out. Download the new DLC, play the save game, and the DLC is not in your Let's Play. How much dying are you to start a new Let's Play with a new DLC in it?
I'm a completionist. I always finish them.
Yeah.
I might start a new campaign, don't get me wrong. I might start a new one to include the new DLC.
Yeah.
I'm still going to finish all the ones I started.
No, but how much is it like thinking, oh, you know, if especially if it's something small and it is insignificant, then it doesn't matter. But if it's kind of one of those DLCs which kind of influence the game, you know what I mean, and you feel like you're not, do you get what I mean?
I definitely agree. Outside of the channel, I have played particularly with the Wood Elves. I actually thoroughly enjoyed playing them beforehand, even though their end game was the most annoying thing on the planet, which they still haven't fixed. But I have actually just completely abandoned campaigns, deleted them, and started afresh because suddenly there were more entities, more factions, more provinces in some cases introduced into the grand campaign maps.
Well, that's it, isn't it? It's kind of that situation where I suppose you could say it's like a difficult situation as well, especially if you're just playing on your own, fair enough. But if you're in the kind of the game we're in, people always want to know what's the newest stuff, don't they? So you kind of feel like you're giving yourself that disadvantage by not implementing that into your Let's Plays. Now, that's one thing I reckon they should implement as well. If a DLC is into a save game compatible, every DLC should be save game compatible. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we can implement, but then that's kind of difficult because if you have a DLC which is a certain faction at a certain part of a map, and then you've got that part of the map, or another faction's got that part of the map, how does that could change the complete outcome of the entire game altogether, couldn't it? Because what the settlement that the faction is in is their last settlement, for instance. What is your last settlement?
No, definitely. In any kind of grand strategies are the games we're on about, where your campaign can go on for maybe a few hours. If you're playing it on short, it could take you days, weeks, months to complete these.
Yeah, these games do. The games we play on do take weeks or months to complete. They're not the games that complete overnight, do they? And that's what I think we love about them is everything's changed with them, doesn't it? And it is one of those situations where but one thing that does do my head in about these games, which can be frustrating, is that snowball effect. When you get to that point where, you know what I mean?
Well, that's what I was getting onto, is that basically when you're introducing these new factions, new areas through DLC, what may have started as a very easy beginning, and this happens a lot, particularly in the Total War franchise, suddenly there's another faction next to you who are a lot more powerful. Maybe you're not able to develop as quickly. Maybe they actually get land that you would have gotten much faster than you, preventing you from expanding. It can entirely change the way the campaign goes. But would you say that this sort of really game-changing DLC is then something that should be promoted, as opposed to then the more cosmetic or very minor changes for equal price a lot of the time?
It's kind of hard to say, really, isn't it? It's because, as the old saying goes, you get what you pay for, really, don't you? But with these DLC and on these, do you actually get what you pay for? Do you get what I mean? It's kind of, you know what I mean? It's like cosmetic, as I like cosmetic and stuff like that. I like little things in battles. Like me and you are different on certain aspects. You don't mind how the battles play out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. With me, I like, you know what I mean, when like those cavalry charge into that infantry, I like that impact zone, you know what I mean, with that, you know, little things like that make a difference to a game like that. So I suppose each DLC, if it speaks to a different person, it might speak differently to you. Like, say if they had a DLC come out which says more HD real impacts, you know what I mean, and they give you a promotion, this is what it impact before, this is what impact that.
Graphics, I can take them or leave them. I am still perfectly happy going back and playing games from 1990, and I have no problem with sprites. I actually think they look pretty cool a lot of the time, to be honest with you.
Yeah, well, I haven't got a, you know what I mean? But I think I've got accustomed to it now in the Total War game. I think that it's like not accustomed to it, I suppose, like more of a, I expect more. I expect more from these battles and stuff like that in it. It's like, for instance, I've just purchased Valheim. Yeah, and that's the graphics on that ain't amazing at all. Like, you know what I mean? I'd say, yeah, they remind me of a PS1, but the game is really enjoyable. Like, you know, but I think I can take it and leave it when it comes to certain games. When it comes to like a survival game with Valheim, I can more likely deal with the graphics for the added bonus of the massive world and all the underground caves I'm going to explore and what little nasties and secrets I'm going to find. Do you get what I mean? But as with Warhammer, you know, I do like the campaign map, but the battles speak a lot for me as how the, you know, the units interact with each other and stuff like that. So if a DLC come out which could improve that quite a lot, the chances are I'd most probably buy it. As where you wouldn't see the need for it. Like, do you get what I mean? So
if it was purely a cosmetic one, no. If it actually affected anything within the game, anything that would change how entities not so much visually interact, but how the numbers behind that work, I might be tempted if it's changing that, because that essentially would be a rebalance to the game.
Like, I would like say, for instance, how cool would it be if you could have like let's take the Last Kingdom into perspective now. That battle in the Last Kingdom when they got the shields up and they slowly move and bump, and then they collide and they pull back. How cool would it be to have something of that initiated into a battlefield? And that's what I like.
It's also a question of game balance, though, because if you can move a shield wall, that becomes a bit questionable. How good is that shield wall going to be? Often in games with a shield wall implemented, it's usually immobile because it's kind of incredibly tanky. Whereas when they can move, a mobile one, for example, with Attila, they have mobile shield walls significantly weaker compared to your immobile ones. But you have that ability to move.
But I think that's possible because in Mountain Blade Bannerlord 2, you can do that. You can advance to enemies, shields up. They'll put their shields up.
I would say bringing in game mechanics at that level as a DLC, I would be inherently against for the simple reason that that should just be well, it should be the new game. That should be the number 2, number 3, whatever they're on.
I get what you mean. Well, that's it, innit? That's it. You know what I mean? But in kind of, I think personally, kind of to sum it up, they are taking. I am not against DLC. Okay, now. At the end of the day, if they've created a game, they've developed a game, and then say 6 months down the lane after they've shot up with a new idea. All right, this would be good to implement into the game. Right now, people got to develop that, and people got to be paid for that. We're not against paying against people who do their blaming job, as long as they do their job correctly and do their job, good. So if they say, all right, we've just come up with this new idea, we'd like to implement it into the game, obviously due to, they haven't got to explain themselves, but, the more the logical thinker will think, well, they've obviously have to pay to develop this. You know what I mean? And that makes a change, and I haven't got a problem with that. But what I have got a problem with is them planning it. Do you get what I mean?
I was going to say, this comes back down to that transparency.
It's like, you know what I mean? That's kind of, how can I... sleazy, if you put it down in another word, that's sleazy, Alice, because you're not being transparent, you're lying, you know what I mean, and you're just trying to get as much money out of the people who are buying your game as possible, like, you know what I mean, and I don't like that. That's not nice, Alan.
Actually, to bring in a bit of a side point, something similar has been happening in a lot of games and a lot of different things. DLC, for a while, they introduced DLC after the fact. But also things like advertisements in games. I believe it was the NBA game had advertisements brought into the game itself after the review copies were released. This is something that in a game review they didn't even know about because it didn't exist until long after release. Would you say that?
It's so don't get me wrong. These companies. The thing is here, these companies got to make money. If they don't make money, we don't have what we want. Okay. Now, at the end of the day, but then there's a fine line between doing what's right and then being, it's really fine line, and it's getting to that fine line now when it comes to DLC, because, you know what I mean, new gamers, like we touched on about what I spoke about earlier about implementing it now into stuff like Fortnite and stuff like that. Now, when younger players become the next generation of gamers, that is going to be the norm for them. It's going to be the norm.
It's already the norm now.
But to us, we're a lot more picky, because we've seen what it used to be like, and we're a lot more, how can I say it, with the world, you know what I mean? I used to go out and climb trees, and, well, to a degree, you know what I mean?
I was like, with the world.
Well, yeah, you know what I mean? That's why I play my games, because I don't want to, I'd rather...
Yeah, we're keeping away from the world, if anything else. Yeah. Final question now, sorry, we had a wee bit of a break there. So for the final question, just before we end, do you feel that DLC is a positive thing for the gaming community? Give us a little summary of what you think.
Well, my opinion is within reason. Yeah, it's like I say, there's nothing wrong with adding things. Times change all the time, and things got to change with that. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? If things don't change, things don't get better. But I suppose it's a fine line, isn't it, between making something different to take an advantage then of the people who buy your product. Now, because we all know majority of stuff in DLC should be in the base game anyway. How many times have you bought a DLC and thought, well, why isn't that in the game? It doesn't make sense, you know what I mean? It's
basically just every time.
Exactly. So then it's just like, well, they obviously clearly doing this for one reason, and that is basically to make money. Do you get what I mean? So I think they pull it back a bit, and DLC, if it's going to be implemented, have it implemented in such a way where it actually makes a blimmin' difference to the game. And you can get your money's worth out of it, because, you know what I mean, paying $49.99 for a game and then spending another £80 on DLCs. Do you get what I mean? It's just ridiculous, isn't it?
Yes, games are essentially doubling, tripling in price in the modern day.
Yeah, but you don't see that because one specific reason, because you only pay $3.99 1 point. oh, and the following month then $4.99, or the following week $8.99.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not breaking the bank within a degree where you're thinking, oh yeah, but then when you add it all up at the end, you think, God, I have paid like, you know, £140 for a Total War Warhammer game.
Yeah.
Or in other aspects, £10,000. You know what I mean? For everything, you know what I mean?
£10,000 for every train, every track there is.
I know, it's just incredible, and I couldn't believe my eyes. I knew it was taking a mick, but I couldn't believe my eyes when I seen that earlier. I thought, really, that can't be right, but it is. It's it, and right then, you know, you can't argue with that, can you?
Go on. Well,
So,
an
yeah.
inconclusive answer from us there. As always, this is a very, very big topic within the gaming sphere. And of course, we'll no doubt be touching on this again at some point. So just at the end, Frosty, what do we have good to look forward to on your channel coming up?
Well, I am turning my attention back to Warhammer 2. Now, I know you have, if you guys have been watching my channel, I've kind of distanced myself off from that, but I think in preparation for Warhammer 3, I kind of need to get my mitts dirty again before I can become a complete noob at it. So it'll be, I'm looking at doing some guides, etc. So, still with Mountain Blade, and just keep an eye out, guys, because my head's always full of something to do, and you know, I'm always coming up with new this and that. So, but I am going to be pushing the boat out a bit now. So yeah, just come over, check it out, and if you enjoy it, you know what to do. Job's a good one.
Excellent, some good stuff to look forward to. All right, well,
Yeah.
that finishes our time. It was lovely having everyone here, and it's been lovely talking. Don't know where I'm going with this one. Right, goodbye for now. I've been
Yeah.
I've been Bear. This has been Keep It Frosty.
Thanks, bro. It's been fun. I'll speak to you all soon, guys. Thanks for joining.
It's contagious, isn't it? This tongue twister.
Yeah.